What's the most too far you've ever seen a high school prank go? Someone let a greased pig loose in the school. It basically ran around and was pretty funny. Teachers did try to catch him. But basically they opened doors and figured the pig would run outside. The janitor went caveman and healed the pig with a broken broom handle. Blood all over the floor. Janitor was fired that day. Not seen. But the senior class before I was a freshman had dumped whole buckets of crickets into all of the school's garbage cans. Fast forward. A fight broke out at lunch. And a student was knocked into one of the garbage cans and thousands of crickets spilt out onto the concourse, causing a massive riot. I'm talking mobs of kids leaving the school. The school was infested with crickets for years. I think you and I go to the same school. At my high school when I was a freshman, a group of seniors had broken into the school the night before with hundreds of bottles of lube to grease up all the staircases in the school. Like 15 kids went to the hospital. One kid cracked his head open and had to be rushed to the ER. When I was a sophomore, a group did the same thing at my school. But they also greased the handrails, handicap ramp, and a wooden memorial bench. The bench was ruined. And I don't know what they used. But after it was cleaned it would come back every time it rained. The handicap ramp. Nice touch. At least they don't discriminate. Dude in my school had a crummy old car that the lock was broken and could easily be put in neutral and pushed around. The steering still locked. So mostly kids would push it into a parking space ahead or behind of it. One day they pushed it and it got away from them and it damaged a teacher's car. The kids owned up to it. But considering the owner was so sick of his car being messed with, he called the police. Turns out moving a car a few meters is considered vehicle theft around here and 3 kids were charged and expelled. Someone bought multiple bottles of this stuff called liquid ass and absolutely poured like 10 bottles of the stuff in the men's restroom. It was truly the smell of putrid rotting dead elephant. It was horrendous. If I smelled a dead body it would be the second worst thing I've ever smelled. It was that bad. Our poor janitor was assigned to clean it up and so he walked in and immediately projectile vomited all over the bathroom and quit the job on the spot. We were now out a janitor and the mess now had the new addition of vomit on top of 10 bottles of liquid ass. It took a while to find a new janitor, so the vomit just sort of sat there for a week and it was basically a biohazard at that point. A new janitor eventually cleaned the mess in a full body suit, but even after bleaching everything we could still smell it for over 6 months. They had to permanently remove the front door to that bathroom. A group of kids staged a kidnapping one time. They borrowed a van and drove in front of a busy shopping center. One guy, pretending to escape, jumped out the trunk all wrapped up in duct tape. To the horror of all the bystanders, the van stopped. 2 kids ran out and recaptured the escapee and drove off. Cops had to go to their homes when the van was identified and they had a lot of clearing up to do. It's just a prank, bro. Had a mate in a neck brace for a year because him and another mate would frequently push each other into things like walls, railings etc. as a joke. The other mate decided to one-up him by pushing him down a flight of stairs. Oh yeah? I'm upping the ante. So the senior class 2 years ahead of me forked the lawn in front of the school. A classic, right? Well, they took it a bit further. Instead of buying plastic forks in bulk, the seniors, for their whole school year, methodically pocketed the metal silverware from lunch and breakfast. Not every piece every time, but just enough that the lunch staff would think it was accidental loss. We have a small class size, so kids would bust their own trays by dumping the scraps into big trash cans, and sometimes people would forget to take their silverware off first and they'd get lost. We had regular announcements at lunch reminding us to make sure we didn't throw away the utensils. So in this massive conspiracy that only they knew about, they collected hundreds of metal utensils. The night before their last day of classes, they snuck into the school grounds and methodically stuck hundreds of forks, knives, and spoons into the grass a foot apart each. To make it worse, one of the 2 custodians had recently been fired and the remaining custodian was an older guy who was perfectly kind and in an ideal world should have retired sooner. He had to pick them all up by himself. I heard one of the teachers came in early and helped him a little bit. And saw the custodian had tears falling down his cheeks. This is around a week after the Parkland shooting in Florida. Some freshmen thought it would be a cool idea to bring in a BB pistol during school hours. All the staff thought he was an actual school shooter and there were a lockdown with everyone ready to throw some heavy books at the first person who came in their rooms. He got expelled and some say that he got sent to juvie. Edit. I should probably provide more context. The dude was planning to play a prank on a friend of his by pulling out the BB gun. And that's how I spent 3 hours in my chem class panicking. Also how the staff realized. One time at my high school some dude brought in a string of firecrackers. Big ones. Set them off in the middle of class change. Almost caused a mass panic. Got 2 weeks suspension. Despite breaking 3 level 4 offenses which had the automatic punishment of expulsion. Our school administration was a ducking joke. This actually happened at a friend's school. A guy found a dead pigeon. And the class decided it would be fun to hide it inside a hardcover folder that a teacher left on her desk. The only problem was that the pigeon would bulge the folder. So they had no better idea than to put it inside and stomp the folder and pigeon flat. When the teacher, she was pregnant at the time, opened the folder she yelled in terror and fainted. They took her out in an ambulance. On the next day the principal informed the class that the teacher suffered a miscarriage and that they were lucky if she didn't press any charges. Needless to say they never told anyone whose idea it was or who participated in the prank. When I was a freshman there was a tree that was planted when the school was founded. The seniors destroyed it, everyone was ducking pissed. One guy from my school sprayed some pepper spray in the air during class because he thought it'd only make everyone's eyes sting a little. Ended up with some students almost suffocating to death. The whole floor getting evacuated. And the guy getting expelled. Okay, so this bad Axe body spray happened at my school a few years before I started there. I coated my desk with hand sanitizer and set it on fire and told me teacher my desk was doing that thing again. A cute goth girl at a party I was at once held a puddle of hand sanitizer in the palm of her hand. She said watch this and lit it on fire. She held it calmly for a moment. Then screamed OW. It had burns. And then swung her hand around trying to shake it off. She basically did a live action reenactment of Mario when he gets a fire flower. Instead of bloop sounds though, it was a screaming teenage goth girl going up in flames. She didn't burn her hand too terribly. But she learned a valuable lesson that day. Fire bad. A couple of underclassmen crashed a wholesome senior prank and ruined it. The original prank was spray painting the graduating class year all over the building in washable paint. But these kids came by after they were done and did swears and slurs. The graduating class almost didn't walk until parents kept complaining that their kid wasn't at fault. They ended up having to do whatever they did to cover up the writings, and there was still a pillow with a big dig on it for a few weeks after. Someone slipped LSD into a teacher's coffee. He was tripping balls. I think back on it now and feel sad for him. That's really dangerous. As well as horribly scary for someone who doesn't know what's happening and didn't take Drugas voluntarily. I'd assume probably very illegal as well. Some seniors came in at night and moved all the desks and whiteboards so that the classrooms were now set up outside. School was outside the next day. The school made them cleans up after school. They repeated the same prank 5 more times. At high school, someone in my year group decided it would be a funny idea to run and tackle a bin that was leaning on a pole. He then pretended to be unconscious, and as the group of students watched on, rumors started to go around that he jumped off the 2nd story walkway and tackled the pole in the air and then fell towards the ground. He continued to pretend to be unconscious, and as soon as the ambulance arrived to check on his injuries, he suddenly jumped up and ran off into the distance and out of the school. Aftermath: got suspended for 2 weeks. Was later expelled for bringing a knife to school. If that's to give any indication of what kind of guy he was. He wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. A guy in my class put a tack on a chair like in old cartoons. When a classmate sat in that chair, it was not funny. It never is. Happened to one kid in 7th grade. It wasn't funny, it was just stupid. In senior year, my genius classmates thought it would be a good idea to take all the books out of the library and make a giant book mountain. Needless to say, we spent around 7 hours learning the Dewey Decimal System. I was livid when the administration forced our whole class to resort the books, even though it was like 3 idiots who made the whole mess. Corporate punishment is technically against the Geneva Convention. This girl a year or 2 above sent this kid in my year a nude. And not just any nude. She was fisting herself. He sent it around to everyone and someone printed it off hundreds and put it up all around the school. Some guys thought it would be funny to put a 6-pack of beer and a joint in my trombone case during class. Ducking everyone saw them do it. But I got caught with it. What happened? Got 3-day suspension. Parents were cool about it. It was close to my birthday and told them it was meant to be a gift but had no idea who put it there. Someone put a couple of dead fish in the laundry dryer at my boarding school. We also had a 3-year string of phantom poopers who would just take it in random places like corridors, urinals, etc. Must have been different people because you can only be there for 2 years at a time. Most do 1. Plot twist, it was a teacher. Someone put their own feces under a teacher's desk. I broke into my friend's middle school email account in the middle of the night to send his current email address a message from the future. This message was inspired by that one prank from The Office where Jim sensed white faxes from the future about the coffee being poisoned. My dumbass took it one step farther and said that my friend needed to stop me and my other friend from playing the piano at break, as otherwise a bomb would go off. My friend took this seriously and alerted a teacher, who immediately knew it was me. Yeah, the police were called. My ass nearly suspended. And I was grounded for a month. I wouldn't call this a prank, but a kid once wrote the name of another kid in his own note on the toilet wall. This was a fate worse than death for the unsuspecting victim. Cries of derision could be heard throughout the building. Malicious rumors were spread for weeks. The poor kid was subjected to a social death sentence. A dead man walking. It wasn't until a fateful rainy Thursday afternoon, after pay, that the wrongly accused was exonerated when the real Tasso fell victim to his own hubris and was caught brown-handed in the act of fecal graffiti. During one of my siblings' tenure, a few students broke into the gymnasium and turned hoses onto the basketball court. Completely ruined everything as it ran a good part of the night. I believe they caught and expelled all of them. My class had a few people superglue as many door locks they could reach. That really made everyone happy. Why the old carry the teacher's Volkswagen into the quad prank that at least only caused some inconvenience and not property damage became a thing of the past? I'll never know. Dude at my school broke into the teacher's lounge and microwaved ghost pepper popcorn. They thought it would just make everyone's eyes water a little. They basically mazed everyone in the tiny, compact hallway that the teacher's lounge is in. The school has no idea who did it, but classes in that hallway had to be relocated. Edit, they let it burn for a while. This all happened a couple of years before I started high school. But someone released thousands of crickets into the building. They are still in the air ducts and we can't get them out. All of the air vents have been locked shut until a solution is found. Not necessarily a high school prank, but childish nonetheless. I was in the car business and a couple guys went back and forth pranking each other's cars. I don't remember the second to last move, but the final was a little over the top in my opinion. The finisher decided he'd had enough and removed the metal bottom door plate, older car, and lined the underneath with sardines. Once he screwed the plate back on, no one could figure out where the rotten stink was coming from. We didn't all hear until later what he actually did. But the guy he did it to ended up selling his car at a loss because he couldn't get rid of the smell. The kids at my school nominated the weird, homely girl for prom queen. I think that's really sweet. She will probably never forget that as long as she lives. Except they probably did it as a joke and there's a good chance she knew that. For a senior prank at my HS, A group of kids stole a ton, if not all, I can't remember, of the bathroom stall doors. While the administration was trying to figure out who did it, how to replace all the missing doors, they had makeshift plywood doors installed. They eventually caught the kids who did it and formally charged them with theft and a few other things. It was pretty genius. Though, to pay the legal fees, the kids got a shitload of t-shirts printed with the phrase "I prefer the plywood," and most of the school bought them in solidarity. So, all in all, a kind of heartwarming ending to a too-far situation. Someone placed posters of hentai around the school in various locations. A separate group of guys took everything out of a classroom and put it all on the roof. The school didn't tolerate end-of-year pranks after that. A year before I transferred to school, I learned that some seniors greased the steps with baby oil, causing students to slip and fall, including teachers, one of which was several months pregnant. The principal ordered that they do not get to walk for graduation. There was this whole mess with the parents fighting to get the punishment overturned. Some of the students got punished and others got to walk for graduation. The parents were like, no one got seriously hurt and it was just a prank. But seriously. Seniors in my high school locked all the exits with bike locks and pulled the fire alarm. They were charged. Going back about 15 years ago, a group of 10-13 senior kids decided to raid our community school and literally rip off all tube lights, bend all ceiling fans, smash some walls, etc. There was quite a substantial amount of damage. At that time CCTVs weren't all that famous or used, so it was difficult to identify, but luckily there were some eyewitnesses and the boys and their parents were immediately summoned. Kids suspended and parents were asked to foot the bill. Oh. And the kids were named and shamed in front of the whole community. Edit, grammar. This was actually in middle school. The bathrooms had particularly low ceilings. One day some boys went into the girls' bathroom during class time, I guess when the least amount of people would be in there, and somehow managed to get a chair up into the ceiling tiles. Many girls knew they did this and we all thought it was pretty funny. We forgot about the chair for like a week until it came crashing down onto a girl who was using the toilet. This girl was very frail and super underweight. It came down and knocked her out. The school went on lockdown while the paramedics took her to the hospital. She was fine. They locked the bathrooms the rest of the year and only opened them between classes. Many kids would go to the nurse to use the bathroom when they couldn't hold it in class. They put toilet paper in every tree. It has been 2 years and the toilet paper is still there in some trees. When I was a freshman, the senior prank was releasing farm animals into the school. A couple had to be put down because of injuries they sustained while running loose. My senior year, someone ate on the cafeteria floor and then surrounded it with some sort of clear oil. One of the janitors got hurt trying to clean it up. I'm all for funny pranks, but this was just vandalism and cruelty. When I was a freshman, the seniors hung up a blacklist everywhere in the building which depicted all the people, mostly freshmen, they hated for no specific reason. On their last school day, all of them were completely wasted. They started chasing all the people whose names and pics were on the blacklist, tied them up and brought them to a stage while the rest of the school sat downstairs. Being the audience, they embarrassed these people on the stage. They poured water over them and pushed their wet heads into flour or other stuff that got sticky with the water. Some of the victims got over it fast and laughed about it later, while some broke down crying, not ever wanting to go back to school again. Later, we all had to talk to our teachers about this and tell them how we felt about it. I wasn't on that blacklist, but I knew some of the students who were. I thought it wasn't cut fun anymore. By the time I was a senior, we weren't allowed to do anything of the sort anymore. So we just threw some water balloons at the other kids. It was a hot summer's day, so everybody actually liked it. My brother's senior class decided it'd be a fun prank to break into the school that night. They put dead fish in lockers, shaving cream all down the halls, and broke into the main office and smashed some computers. They then egged the outside for good measure. That hallway smelled like it for a good month after. None of them faced any legal consequences because one of the kids' dad is a lawyer. But I think they lost their scholarships. Someone took all the books out of the library and set them outside. The librarians had to spend the next few days trying to reshelve every single book. Don't know what my class did, but the class above me ran down the halls and sprayed either skunk or fart spray everywhere. Dumb part was, they still had to go to class like the rest of us. So they had to smell that god awful smell the whole day like everyone else. People gagged. Some threw up. It was awful. A girl in my country was paralyzed for life because someone put a needle on her seat. The needle somehow traveled from her buttocks to her spine, severing it. There was one year where the seniors at my high school were notoriously bad for end of the year pranks. But the one they are remembered for is when they poured multiple pounds of flour down the most central 4th floor staircase in the school. It took forever for the custodians to clean up, of course, but also caused lots of kids to have asthma attacks, and the staircase was close in proximity to the special ed classrooms. From what I've heard, many kids did not walk for graduation that year. Pied a teacher in the face with spaghetti at a pep rally in front of whole school. My old high school had a rivalry with another high school in the same district. Years ago the football teams would play pranks on each other. They escalated to the point of the other high school killing a black cat and hanging it from a tree at our school. Our mascot was the Panthers. At my high school just one kid or maybe two kids cut down all the trees at our school. There was maybe around 15-20 dead. If you search up Tehachapi High School up on YouTube, there are video on the news about it. These douchebag jerks wanted to trick a girl who was in the special ed class to go with them to prom only to stand her up. Thankfully it was stopped before it actually happened, but that still pisses me off to this day. During the year the class above mine had their Year 12 muck-up day, 3 of the guys were standing at the front gate of the school with Nerf guns and balaclavas demanding money to enter the school. They explained they were donating all the money to charity in their year's name but wanted to have fun. Around lunchtime they went down the main street to deposit the money to then donate it, but they forgot to take off the balaclavas as they approached the bank. Locals called the police. All the banks in the main street went under lockdown for suspicious men in balaclavas walking down the street with a Hessian bag. They got to the bank which had the shutters down for the lockdown, banged on the door wondering what's up since it was the middle of the week. Shrugged it off and went back to school, where police eventually caught up with them and the whole thing was straightened out. Thankfully no one hurt or charged, but a massive stuff up on the boys' part. My HS was quite large and was a campus with many buildings, and in my junior year a senior drove the campus ripping wheelies on his dirt bike wearing only a jockstrap. That got the administrators up in arms. Senior skip week.